You're listening or watching to Marvelous Book, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about making sense of software and technologies from developer point of view. I see in the development community a lot of focus on different technologies, frameworks, code libraries, frameworks, and more. Maybe this is how it should be. If to achieve competence in whatever, one must spend time, energy, effort, and money, collect personal practice and experience. But as time goes by, with acquiring of enough experience with some technology, one starts to have fast bird's view on perspective and see things globally beyond the magic of certain source code or certain technology. So let me start with that. I've started coding professionally a little bit than 13 years ago. Before that, it was school projects and stuff like that, amateur. So I've started coding professionally 13 years ago, and I've seen technologies come and go and evolve and fade away from popularity. I've seen how much a success of some cool feature, some cool software tool is more depending on the psychology and the investment of big brands or something else. The investment of big brands to pull off certain platform to the mass public. So I'm going to point out some examples, some pros and cons of technologies that have appeared and evolved and are here and are working and are not working for certain cases. So first, jQuery. JavaScript library was at its peak 10 or 15 years ago, and there was a big chunk of Windows XP installations, so big chunk of internet was using Internet Explorer, and there was also Firefox, Opera, Chrome browser, so compatibility was an issue and jQuery was the solution. Today, sites built with it are still working and will probably still continue to work even on older devices or whatever new device, but their user interface will be old and will not adapt to the new size of the devices, to the new form factors, and they will look and they will feel old, and probably they will still work. That is a good thing. But if you open a newer app, for example a photo application built for the web on an old device, it will either not work at all or it will be ugly, and that is not good. I've seen ugly website by opening a website from an old device that is using newer CSS framework. This is just an example that not everything new is actually backward compatible and good enough. So I've also seen Android simple user interface components fade away. Some things that same thing with the native user interface that with jQuery. It has been more than 10 years of evolution of Android user interface, and the best practices visual components changed several times. A developer could not depend on the newer libraries, and he could create apps that will be fast, small in size, but again they will look and feel old and even ancient because the increasing requirements of code libraries and app stores, the newer, modern looking components and visual libraries increasingly will require newer versions of Android. So the simple components may be older for the may be compatible for the older devices and will continue to run for the older devices, but it will be impossible to reach these clients, and they will be forced to migrate to and to spend money for more devices, and this is in general not very good, and this is bad actually. For one of the keys of having an enterprise software is backward compatibility, and Android obviously is not backward compatible. And this is my 2 cents about Android. Another thing that I'm seeing from my developer point of view is transcompiling for the web or for other platforms. The relationship of software developers with JavaScript, CSS and HTML is of life and hate. Not sure about the percentages, but because being a software developer is being an engineer, creator, and creators, several companies invested in creating software tools for transforming other types of code for the web, and not only for the web. As a Java developer, I used Google Web Toolkit in several personal projects and several non-personal projects. The Google Web Toolkit transforms Java code to JavaScript, and it failed to stay up to popularity. Within a framework that abstracted the client and the server side from the application developer, so application developer could write directly business logic. They migrated away from Google Web Toolkit in the recent versions. So having in mind that Google Web Toolkit failed and several types of developers hate JavaScript, I cannot find any reasonable logic why languages and frameworks based on the same idea like Dart that compiles to JavaScript, the same idea like Google Web Toolkit, and Flutter, that is a user interface that is not compatible with all devices, is popular. The same thing with TypeScript. TypeScript is again a scripting language, object-oriented language, and functional, and mix of features in the language that again takes a lot of libraries and compiles them to JavaScript. Same idea like in Google GWT, and use again another CSS library packaged in a JavaScript like Angular, and they are popular right now. I cannot kill myself right now. And even C#, the Microsoft team, have the same idea, just with the new toy in town, the WebAssembly. So it is crazy that all the business logic at the end is written in a non-standard, non-popular, backed by different corporation language or technology, and it's popular. Tell me why. Why is this the way it is? The branding, marketing, and programmer emotions are not logical things. Even if we think we are logical because we write a lot of logic, it is not logical the decisions we make for software technologies and frameworks and platforms. And even it is not logical the things we do outside of software, but that is whole another subject that I'll point out another time. So different corporations I'll talk about I'll make several comparisons of UI frameworks. Different corporations tried and are trying different platforms, frameworks, and libraries for the front end layer, for the web, or for other proprietary platforms. Like Adobe, they tried the Flash runtime and invested in a framework for business applications called Flex. So partially because of Apple, thanks to Apple, it failed. Microsoft had Silverlight and it was equivalent of Flash and Flex, and it also failed. Microsoft had Windows Phone and Metro user interface components, and it also failed. No normal user will remember it today. Sun, after that Oracle, had Java applets or Java web applications that had the same concept, integrating with the web or the user application layer with an extension that is outside of the browser. And because of never-ending security issues and the slowness of changes in Java because of the too many communities in Java, other political issues, it is mostly used for enterprise backend. And the use of all other uses of Java is probably in decline because of other issues that are not security issues, that are more political and developer or manager psychology and decisions. Google today is trying to push a framework that is a mix of all past ideas. Flutter. I have several projects with it, so I have some personal experience and some mixed sense from it. It does not need a plugin like Applet's Silverlight or Flash for the web, and also it creates iOS, Android, and desktop apps. So it in theory it is very cool from one source code to create applications for every place. It use again, but it has a cons that it uses again a third non-native language for all places. It uses Dart for the web, and it uses Dart that is different from Kotlin and Java for Android, and it is not Swift for iOS, and I don't want to start with the different platforms for desktop. So it uses the same language that is good for keeping up one developer being able to produce apps for every place, but again it will be not perfect. It will have some adaptation for every platform, and also it does not perform good on all devices. I have an Android 4.0 device, and the web version of Flutter is not running at all. And my global 2 cents are, until a corporation or a technology is not negotiated and integrated between Microsoft, Apple, Google, and several other big names like the consortium, the Internet Consortium, any technology that whatever size of big corporation tries to push, it will fade away until some adaptation is done from the other players in the internet world. I'll give an example. WebAssembly may have some success because it is pushed from the consortium and it has an implementation in Chromium, I think in Firefox also. So it may succeed if it evolves to adapt and be standardized and implemented in all browsers. And this again is logical issue and a political issue and financial and emotional issue, and not something that is straight, that is logical. And it is again, if you view things from global perspective, no technology is logical. No use of any technology is logical. You must take into account business, finances, power, speed of development, speed of performance. So too many variables. There are too many variables when to pick a technology. So this will be the topic of my next video. All these technologies and when and how to pick them when you have a new idea, new business, new whatever.